Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of In the Booth. I'm Jimmy Vervitas and really excited to do this next episode with you guys. Before I start, please don't forget to like and subscribe. You guys have been doing a pretty job. Today we're going to be talking about a car that I've owned a couple of times and a variation that was the brainchild of my partner in crime, Ed Wang. And we're going to talk about it as well as its normal counterpart, and a car that we always, I think, wished would come to North America and didn't really start happening until the M3 became, well, not an M3 anymore. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my man, Ed. Ed, say hi to the camera.
How's it going, guys? Jimmy, thanks for having me again.
Of course, man.
A lot of sleepless nights thinking that the next time I'll be here. So yeah, pretty excited about the two. As Jimmy was mentioning, we wanted to do this project for a very long time. Jimmy and I both love the E92, the E90 Series M3s, and I guess we should start talking about the stock version. Jimmy, you know this more than you've owned like 5 of those, so like you can start.
So what can I say? Really, probably one of the most complete cars I've ever owned in terms of the sports car category. Growing up, like BMW is always like a really serious thing for me. I don't know where it happened, but my dad embedded it into me that like BMWs were like the best. So, growing up, my brother had an E30 325 IS and that was my first taste, and it was so amazing, front engine, rear drive, limited slip differential. It was a great car to learn how to drive on. I cherished those days. And of course, as things progressed, the M3 grew into a bigger and bigger car. Obviously the E36 M3 bringing finally 6-cylinder power, the E46 bringing 6-cylinder power and maybe the maturity that the previous generations couldn't really bring. And then finally, a V8 was put in this car. And man, Ed, like, could you ever really argue it? It's a 4-liter, 414 horsepower V8. It revs to 8,500 RPM. It makes the most blissful sound. I've always really compared this car to an F12 Ferrari. It's like a small F12. You know what I mean? It behaves the same way. It has a very similar sound and note. It just got all the creature comforts you can ever want, all the tech, all the luxury, the refinement. I couldn't really fault it. And every one that I've owned is operated flawlessly. And more importantly, I know we're all like, all about those 3-pedal manuals and stuff like that, but I don't know about you. You had one as well. So
I think like for me, like, my history with the E90 Series M3 this is when I remember specifically I started like in the car business with BMW back in Vancouver, and I remember this car got announced and then one landed at the store and I was like, holy shit, this thing is crazy, with the hood, the hump and the V8, everything about it, and to your point, it is just a perfect car. Like it's luxurious inside. It's got a good engine, big engine. It's got special wheels and good brakes and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of like a sad thing for me to every time I see a E90 M3, E92 M3, it's kind of sad to me because BMWs are not like that anymore. Even back in the day when Dyna was a big part of it, which we'll get into in a little bit, they've kind of moved away from that as well because it's all tuning, software tuning and all that kind of stuff, and it's not the serious engine building and all that kind of stuff. So in my mind, like this car will always sit really like a special place in my heart.
I think the departure from today's tuning, and I think that's why Steve Dynan probably lost interest in his own company. Making a fast engine naturally aspirated, that's a high degree of difficulty. Anybody can tune a turbocharged car to make an additional 50, 60 horsepower by opening up a laptop. Yeah, I'm not saying that's easy, but it's still, everything's already kind of in there for you to sort of take the advantage of what's left and create that extra 20, 30%, to the bottom line of that horsepower. When it comes to a naturally aspirated motor, there's just so much more that has to actually happen. So the degree of difficulty is higher and the reward is even more satisfying. And I think that's really where BMW has gone. That's where all manufacturers gone. Let's be honest, man. Nothing you can buy today doesn't have a turbocharger strapped to it, right? Because it's just easy power. It's easier to get them compliant for EPA and all that stuff. But let's be honest, it's great, but it kind of sucks at the same time.
It's just cool how they 1 year V8. That's it. They're not even going to try it to go on, because they probably had a plan for the inline six turbo to be the stable engine for a very long time, right? But yeah, like, I mean, the car, I mean, when I drive this car, I mean, I don't have as much experience as Jimmy driving them, because, you know, he's had many of these. I always felt great engine, great power, great sound, but I felt that the chassis was too powerful, almost, for lack of a term, for the engine. So the torque, you can really feel like that it's missing a little bit of torque. The brakes are very weak. Like, I mean, even from like anything special edition from any manufacturer, the brakes are always fairly upgraded, but for BMW, I thought they were a little weak. So like, it just feels like, to me, it just feels like the car could handle more, right? So so with the GTS, I guess it was just a car that I guess BMW probably thought, hey, listen, they're going to sell out all the 997 GT3 RSs. Why don't we make 150 of what we can do, ask for GT3 RS price, and then maybe we're probably going to sell every single one of them, because not everybody's going to get a GT3 RS. So I think at the time, the GTS was, I think it was almost like $10,000 euro more than the 997 GT3 RS. It was a very, very expensive car, and I think anybody that didn't do this exercise and looked at it will always see it as a BMW M3 and be like, how can it be like 300,000, 200,000, right? Because, you know, this particular car right here would be 60, 70,000 today. It was about 50 grand, you know, 6 months ago. So for us, like, for example, for this car, you know, again, it's a part spin car, basically, essentially, for the brakes, suspensions. Suspensions are KW V2s that we could just order anywhere. Recaro SPGs, seats. We have, you know, the Brembo brakes that we kind of refinished them into the BMW. So it's a tribute car, so we try to make it as real as it is. But when you do that, when you want to do the brakes, when you want to do the KWs, when you want to do the genuine front lip and stuff like that, that build gets up really quick, right? A lot of the stuff is we can order it, but like stuff like the rear seats and stuff like that, we were not able to order it at all. Like, we had to custom make everything. Yeah, so the rear deck, we had a sort of upholstery store that's like kind of like does custom stuff. He custom made all the brackets, the Alcantara finish and stuff like that. We had another company to make the custom cage. We painted it and all that kind of stuff. All the liners up in the top over here are all custom. You know, being a coupe, the rear, the center console of the rear seats, we had to delete that, obviously, and therefore we'll leave a little hole on the back of the first section of the center console. So we had to custom make a bracket to sort of cover that. So a lot of custom work has been done to it that, like, I think people, if they were looking at this car for sale, they go, like, where does the money go? Where did all that kind of, but that kind of stuff was time consuming, and it has to look good, it has to work.
I think it's very, very often that we get caught up and we see, oh, you know, it's got a big brake kit on it, big deal. It's got this, it's got that. And you know what, when it all, you know, when you check off every little box and you put every little piece on it and every little step along the way, well, this doesn't fit right, or we got to do something over here, it just all amasses. And you know, you want it done by a shop that's reputable, that it's going to do the right work. And obviously we solely believe in our shop exclusively for all these kinds of builds. And I got to say, Chris Clark has outdone himself over here. I think he's done an amazing job putting the car together. We are, I would say, 90% complete with this build.
We're about 90-95% done. We're just waiting for small stuff like the lug nuts. We have the studded lug nuts that we want the little ones to put on. We upgraded the sway bar, which is, I don't know, in the comments below, you guys can comment. I don't know if the European GTS actually had upgraded sway bars, but we just decided to do that anyways, because our build has always just been OEM plus. That's kind of our thought. Make it OEM how they would have came from the factory, but we'll nicely tune in and make it a little bit better. And I'm sure the European GTS would have drove amazing, but I think this engine suits this build way more. And this engine is the Dynon 4.6 stroker motor that is often seen in the BMW M3 S3R. I actually personally used to have a 2013 M3 with the full S3R build. It was built by Kim Mitchell, Patio Lantern. Kim, if you're watching, amazing car. And you know,
that was our first taste of what that motor can do, man.
Yeah, if we'll add that video in this too. Jimmy and I actually had E92s at the same time. Yours was tuned too. Yours had, like, you know, the DCT transmission.
A DCT tune for the transmission, and I also had the test pipes replace the primary cats with a software tune. And you know, it did net me another 2 mile an hour in the quarter and another 10th. But just to give you a little bit of an idea, and this is kind of where I feel that this engine specifically is so special. I've raced supercharged M3s before, and in a straight line, do they pull a little harder? Yeah, a little bit, but not enough for me to feel like, wow, that's like significantly faster. And I feel like the 15 grand or whatever it cost to do that was worthwhile. This thing here, so just to give you an idea on the actual performance numbers and straight line power, my car, with those with those small tuning things I did, I was doing a 12.9 at 109 miles an hour. Sorry, 110. Okay, that was the most. That was a launch control launch. It was hooking good that night. The track was nicely glued, no issue. So me and this guy line up. This guy can't even do launch control because he doesn't have the tire to support it. And
it was just not working. I was trying to make it work. It was just not working that day. Yeah. So
I think it's user error, but you know, whatever.
It probably is. Probably is.
Anyway, this guy walks it out of the hole, and I do a launch control launch. Yeah, I got him for the first 60 feet, and then he just walked away from me like it was a joke. And this is the power difference at the end. He's trapping 120 miles an hour and did a low 12 versus my car at a 12.9 at 110 on a naturally aspirated build. That is just never seen. And that just goes to show you the real power difference, the 100 horsepower increase that this motor brings. Because this thing's rated at what, 527 over 414. That is not a joke. That is huge. At 4.6.
The power increase, the torque increase just makes this a much more balanced car, which very enjoyable. And most importantly, it was reliable. It never ever gave me any issues when I had it. Like it, you know, and Dynan, just so you guys know, they have a 2-year parts warranty on the engine as well. So they back up their engine as well. And it's reliable. It was fun. It was exactly the balance that you needed. So that's why we decided to go with the 4.6 Dynan. So
to Ed's point, the car was always there as a road car. It completed everything you wanted it to do. But yes, still everything every generation M3 felt a little bit underwhelming in the power area. All of them a little bit short. The E30 the most. And you know what? You guys all love that car. I can't stand it. Okay. So let's go through the build. Okay. Let's go front to back here, man. So
obviously we did the motor. It's a crate motor. They just send it to us. So how it works is that you call them, you order an engine, they send you an engine right away, and they'll take a deposit so that you will send your engine back to them. So they need the core to rebuild another one. I think they said they build about an engine a month. So you know, it was a very easy, quick process. We paid, and then they sent us the engine. So obviously the motor, the tune is from them as well, which we learned that we didn't know that. We thought it was going to be running on factory tune, so we had to send that back to tune that as well. So it's in this break-in period right now. It's got about maybe 400 kilometers left. So, but even right now, just under 4,000, you can just tell the car wants to go. Like it just wants to. Hey, why are you not unleashing me right now, right?
I'm almost convinced that if you put like a full slick on this thing, it might pull a tire up. Okay, I'm joking, but yeah.
So obviously we did the front aero chin spoiler as they do it in the European.
Yeah, and this is the two-piece adjustable one here, right?
So a lot of people are probably thinking that it's just something that sticks right on, which is what I thought. I thought it was going to be a few $100, maybe $1,000 Canadian. We stick it right on, but no, it's actually the whole system is actually bolted onto the crash beam inside the bumper. So
this is like structural here. This is not like an add-on to the bumper. This thing is actually a part of the car. So, you know, a lot of you guys who stick on these like elaborate, cool, you know, front chin spoilers, you know, the air hits it, it starts to actually pull the whole bumper cover assembly down, because this is just weak polyurethane, and you're really not getting the flat, you know, actual aerodynamic design. So this stuff is actually bolted through, and we have, it actually is structured to the actual crash bar, which is made of carbon fiber on these cars, which is sick. Kind of like it always came short of the bumper. Line. I don't know why. The new GTS, based off the F80, I think has a similar design. I hate that car, just so you know. I hate it. But anyway, I kind of always liked how it just protruded out the front and never really came all the way. And then when you run these, you know, bigger Meteor, you know, Michelin, these are the Pilot Sport Cup 2.
Yeah, right? So that's another thing that OEM plus, right? So we obviously Cup 2's tire technology back in the day was nowhere near that. I think they even just ran stock Michelins at the time. So we decided to put some serious tires on it, because we will be bringing it to the track. We actually ran, what's the time that you ran it when it was stock? It was like...
So stock, I ran a 140 flat at our famed Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. I would probably say within my driving limits, I maybe had another second I can pull out of it, but the car was on very old tires, and the brakes were kind of a little tired as well. So there was no setup. It's just we bought a car, we put it on a racetrack, and we went around it. So
in fact, actually, the only setup that we did at the time was to have the cage in it, unpainted, because we just...
Oh, right. We were just in the middle of fabbing the cage. So I was missing the rear seats already, so I will say I had a slight... I guess the cage maybe negates the seats, right? So yeah, so we did a 140 flat, and you know, in my previous M3, I did that car again, no engine work, but just with a big brake kit, no lightning of any kind. On a Pilot Super Sport, I was able to manage a 135 out of that car with suspension all set up. That car was dialed in very nicely. So you know, the real aim for this car, you know, is really to get it deep into that low 130s. Maybe, potentially, is it possible to ring out that 129? You know, the back straight's going to be a big thing in that bid we're going to make for this high performance run around Mosport, and you know, I can't wait to do it. We're probably going to have to get somebody a little bit better to drive it than me. Maybe one of our factory drivers out of the Pfaff Motorsports team, or maybe our very own Chris Green. We'll have to see.
So yeah, obviously we did the tires. The brakes are actually just Brembo big brake kit that you can order anywhere for any car, really. But obviously the factory BMW ones, they kind of had it refinished into kind of like a gloss black finish with the M logo. So we did that. We got the brakes and we refinished them into the factory look. The car actually came with ECS, basically M5 big brakes, you know, and that's another thing, is like we were just going to paint those to black, and then but then it wouldn't have looked proper, like it wouldn't look like a real GTS, right? So KW V2s, suspension setup, which is kind of cool, and they actually come with this like little thing here that actually cancels out the ESC.
Yeah, because this car was fitted with EDC from factory, which this system will not use anymore. So this cancels that system out, so you don't have any fog lights on. And then of course this comes with, I believe, adjustable rebound, dampening, and camber adjustment plates up top here. And driving the car around just during these break-in periods, you can feel how much poise the car has. Like even on quick turns, you don't feel the weight of the car move around very much. It's very nice. The sway bars are going to even help with that more. And of course, depending on your driving style, the level of adjustment you have front to rear on this car now, you can really put this thing on the pads and adjust it how you please. I think probably before we do our run, we might get Pfaff Motorsports to set it up on the pads, give us the most balance, and because we are going to really have to try to hone the additional 100 foot-pounds of torque. And you know, when you're going through tight sections of 5AB and stuff, when you're just exiting there, you're gonna need to be able to put that power down. So we're hopeful that the tires and suspension setup will give us that advantage.
And I like how whatever we're doing to this car here, we're actually gonna put it to the test. Like we're gonna really set it up and really go see.
All of this means nothing if it doesn't work. You know?
It has to work, and that's the beauty of these stuff, right? So obviously the sway bar we talked about, and then moving along, then it's just the interiors. Again, just another, I guess, parts menu kind of, aside from the rear seat delete, these Recaro SPGs, we're very familiar with these. We order them all the time for our Porsche builds and stuff like that. The harness is something that we got for it as well. We couldn't get the full sort of GTS Alcantara steering wheel because obviously they're just European only and they weren't available, but I kind of.
Why? What's the difference?
I think they're a little. They don't have a flat bottom. They're just round. They're a little bit skinnier, and they don't have the blue 12 o'clock. But I kind of like that.
I put this in both of them. The reason I own this.
This car actually already has that, which is kind of nice. So, but it matches the blue harness really well. So it sort of ties everything together with the orange, the black, and the blue and stuff. We did the full carbon fiber gloss interior, as well as the M competition sill. So just the tiny little details here and there, try to make it whatever we see, we try to like sort of mimic, copy that and try to recreate that. Obviously the center console armrest delete. Cool little touch, a nice little feel to it. You can actually remove it and still put stuff in it, but it's not a sort of like
it's real race car stuff. It's functional to the minimal amount.
You have a bag of chips and that's it.
You know what I really like is, you know what I always found with every E92 M3 or E9X chassis car is I always felt in the factory seat I sat very high in the car. I've always hated that feel, and I think because BMW really sinks everything down on the dash, it really doesn't help that feeling. And in these seats you just feel like proper in this thing, you know what I mean? These ones are actually quite comfortable. I like the layback. I got good hip space still as well. So, you know what I mean? If you're a touch bigger, like you're not going to really struggle, I think, to get in and out of this car and take the advantages of these great seats.
One thing that we couldn't replicate was obviously the GTS door cards. A couple of guys actually texted us on our DM and stuff like that. Oh, it's not real unless you get the door cards, and that's true. But we couldn't get that. That was like one thing that we just.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm just gonna counter. You know, we're in North America, okay? We're in North America, and in North America we like to be comfortable, okay? And that means I want my nav. And, you know, I want to put stuff over here, okay? So, you know, don't trick me with this tomfoolery about, like, you know, no door cards and stuff like that. This is a GTS. This is, like, as legit a GTS can be. But it's the way a GTS, I think, would have came to North America.
Exactly. I think if somebody was to order a GTS for North America and they had the choice from a door card holder and not, they'll probably pick that. The nav, they'll probably pick the premium audio.
Like look at every GT3 you see today. Let's talk about Porsche for a moment because they do more of this stuff than anybody else. So if you buy any 911 GT model car, okay, are you ever gonna spec it without that stuff? It's never gonna happen, man.
We did the rear brakes as well, so that's matching brake calipers, which is we painted, we refinished it, got the M logo on it as well.
Right, so that's a 6-piston setup up front, floating disc, and a 4-piston setup in the rear with the floating disc as well. And the floating disc, I gotta say, guys, if you track a lot, is very important because, you know, as you know, when you put a lot of heat through brakes, really put a lot of temperature in them, it's inevitable that you're probably gonna get some warpage. And when you have a floating rotor there, it really helps to absorb a lot of that, and the disc can last longer, and it's a great benefit. Like on usual these stock M3s, you go to one track event, you really hard on it, and those rotors are toast on your way home. Under braking, you just got this big vibration. So you know what I mean? That's a huge benefit and plus to anybody who's gonna take a car like this or buy a car like this or buy this car and really give it the beans every weekend, you know?
And we decided to add a little bit of just small stuff, spacers on the car. We're actually waiting for the rear spacers just to kind of push it out a little bit. The car's lowered, obviously, so we want to make it look a little bit more, you know, that kind of German stance. The front's already has it. That's why you see that protruding out a little bit, which I love. It looks very like aggressive.
See the camber kind of thing. It's definitely got that motorsports kind of feel and look when you look at that part of it, for sure. I love the color coded cage, man. Like You know, I've always dreamed about putting a cage in an M3. Obviously, the rear seats being in the way has always been kind of a holdback, but the execution here with the paint is beautiful. The guys did a great job here, Ed.
And obviously the controversial like look of the wing, I don't mind it. The only angle that this wing doesn't look good, I realize, is the side profile of the car. If you look at it from the angle in the back, especially from the back, it actually looks pretty good. Like, it's not like a crazy, you know.
Listen, it's a sedan, you know what I mean? It's or coupe. And how big of a wing can you really put on it? Again, you know, I think you can pass a point where then it looks immature. Yeah. Like, I was driving up to work today, and I was driving along some guy in a 370Z, and it had some monster on the back of it. And, you know, listen, when you're, you know, 22, 23 years old, that's wicked. But, you know what I mean? To the gentleman driver who would want to track this car, I think this is about all you can do. Yeah. And, you know, likely, you know what I mean, has the function with it's almost meets the end of the roof line on it. Yeah. And produce some downforce and just help stabilize the rear end. Probably see the effects of this more so when you're going through like turn 8 and probably down into 1 and down into 2 at most sports. So you know, really eager to see how that with the front spoiler kind of really balances out the car when it's going out at high speed.
Yeah. So, and then, you know, finishing off with just your normal BMW M Performance titanium exhaust, which is, they were titanium in Europe, but I don't know if they were the same M engraved titanium exhaust, but we got those installed as well. The cars, I would say it sounds stock, how they came from the factory. Jimmy feels like it needs a little bit more sound, but that's to the buyer's discretion. I don't think it needs to be, like, that's the thing, that extra 10%, and I think it's okay.
And the titanium rear section exhaust also helps us save weight there. So if you really think about what we've extracted from the car, we have the big, heavy power seats. You know, those things are like break your back heavy. Okay, I would say that they weigh what, like almost 50 pounds each. I would say something like that. Okay. They're huge. I might be light on that number, I'm not sure. The whole rear section seats has been all removed. Obviously, we've put in all this custom paneling over here, which brought a little bit more weight in. The cage, obviously, which is gonna give this chassis and everything. I think every M3 or BMW has been able to benefit from something that really braces the rear, because there's, you know, this is not a 911 at the end of the day, so there's always going to be a little bit of that chassis flex. So that's going to isolate that a little bit more, but again, adding a little bit more weight. But then we're losing weight again, because the factory muffler on this thing is also a big, heavy pig made of stainless steel versus this lightweight aluminum piece, or titanium piece. So I think the advantage is, I bet you it's going to come in under the weight of a stock one. Yeah. But
I think so, for sure. I think for sure, right? I mean, just looking at it, what we've done, what we've taken out, what we replaced it with, I think we would see a, not like crazy, but it would be significant saving, probably more than what we both expect, for sure. But, you know, then the biggest question is, who buys this, right? Like, you know, we were at a track day, and it was just all Porsches, right? GT3s, GT4s, GT3 RSs, 997 GT3s, whatever GT3 you can think of, Porsche, right? So, you know, I think there's going to be that one guy that's going to go, I don't really want to drive a 997 GT3, right? I don't really want to drive a 997 GT3 on the track, number one. I don't really want to drive a GT4 or a 991 GT3 or GT3 RS, you know? So I think a guy that can, first of all, they have to drive with experience, the difference that we've done to it. But if I was a guy that has Porsches and been tracking all my life, this would be like a really cool, different car that they will find a lot more enjoyment than just being another guy that's kind of like driving another GT car on the track, right?
Listen, I couldn't agree with you more. At the end of the day, when you go to the track and like that last track event we went to, and it was just like Porsche City, and it was like, you know what? Okay, we all know Porsche is the master when it comes to that, okay? But, you know, sometimes when you go out, you don't really want to wear the same watch as everybody else. You don't really want to wear the same shoes as everybody else. You kind of want to, first of all, you want to experience something different, and really, as a driver, honing your experience, learning a front engine rear wheel drive car really does separate the men from the boys in that regard, okay? You know, a 911 or a Cayman, which gives you, you know, rear engine placement, or any other supercar really that does that, gives you a huge advantage in terms of weight distribution and just overall balance and security when you have a lot of weight over the rear wheels. Now you're talking about getting a guy or girl that's gonna sit into a car like this and hone this big engine through these, what are these, 265 section rear tires, and hustle this thing around a racetrack. And what's gonna be the difference? The difference is gonna be the person sitting there. And you know what, as much as a Porsche also, where that matters in a Porsche as well, you can really not be that great of a driver, go to most sport and hustle around pretty decently in a 911. Okay, let's be honest, the car just works really well, it makes it pretty.
And that's why they're popular.
And that's why everybody buys it.
Everybody likes them because they're easy to go fast, right? So
to me, this car is an expression of somebody who already has those 911s, always had an epiphany for BMWs. And if I'm gonna have the ultimate BMW, it's not gonna be, to me, the E30 M3 or its evolution types. It's not gonna be an E36 and all the different variants of that. Even an E46 M3, even a CSL, which I've driven, it's a great car. The airbox sounds great, but still, it's got that SMG2 transmission. It's, yeah, it doesn't have the jam. So, you know, here we are now with the last variation of a naturally aspirated M3. I think, and I hate saying the last of all the time because I think that's what everybody in our business says all the time. This is the last real M3, let's be honest, okay? The new one, it's faster, it's got a turbocharged motor, but let's be honest, that intangible specialness is completely gone. The new one, man, I don't even know what's going on with that car. But anyway.
Well, unless it's the Keith edition.
The Keith is cool.
The Keith
I like
edition.
the inside. The interior is sick. But I think this is like, you know, this is derived from you know, their F1 program, this motor, you know what I mean? The amount of computational change that the DMEs in these cars had was at the F1 level. So if you've driven an M3 of this type, you can drive it in the hottest, most humid day or the coldest day, and the performance always relatively the same. And that only comes from a DME that can change and control the way the engine behaves as quickly and as calculated as this one can. So, like, there's so much tech that I think we really fail to realize in everything that's happening in here in this car. And that's what'll have to be appreciated by anybody who I think wants to buy this thing, you know?
And we have a black one that we bought just for stock as well, and you've been driving it for a little bit, and it's just a great car.
You get out of it and you say, I don't really need anything more than this. Like, it's a 2013 comp package. You've probably seen it on our website. It's a individual color. I forget the name, but it almost looks a bit like carbon black. It's like a dark blue metallic. And you know, you drive it every day. It's got great power. You want to hoon a bit and just go around a corner and kick the rear end of it. It does it with so much poise, and it is so much like feedback. It's just a kind of a perfect car. Then you want to listen to music, you want to shut it all off, put it in automatic mode, and off you go. Because, you know, having a few M3s, I've had manual ones and I've had DCT ones. And, you know, we actually tend to focus more on DCT cars, which is probably what everybody's anti. But I don't know, you tell me. Don't you feel like this car is engineered from the get-go to be DCT versus be a stick?
I think, yeah, no matter what people say online or whatever, a double clutch transmission is better than a manual transmission. I mean, I guess, yeah, you're not doing this with your leg or whatever, but if you're looking for performance and you're looking for high tech, then for sure a double clutch transmission is way more beyond than any transmission out there.
Right, well, even if you look at, you know, this car came from factory, there was no manual option, only DCT. And then let's go back a step further, E46 M3 CSL only came with SMG. Even they knew at that point that crappy single clutch transmission was going to be faster around a track than any guy who's rolling gears. And this car is not about being an everyday road car. This car is about going to the track. So when you're on that racetrack and you're going around, and every time you reach for that lever, the guy in front of you leaves you another car and a half, it starts to annoy you, man. It really starts to bug you. So having the DCT and able to break the torque by shifting gears, like, I really believe in the way this car drives, it was engineered to be a DCT from factory. So I'm really excited about the project. You know what I mean? We're contemplating starting a second project with this one now,
I think we're gonna do it. You know, we're just gonna double down because I enjoyed it. I see it, and if anybody wants to, you know, commission us to do one, we will do one, but we will only do it on a orange car. So it has to be orange. It has to you know, we won't do it on like we were thinking about doing it on black one, but that wouldn't be a GTS. So it has to be orange. I think the orange looks really, really sick with the blue and everything.
There you have it, guys.
There it is.
Thank you so much for tuning in for this episode of the GTS Tribute car. We're super excited for it to come to market, and super excited to run it at the track at, and I can't wait for that to happen. So, you know what I mean? Try to like and subscribe. You guys got to do a better job because it's kind of suck right now. And, you know, we're trying to want to get this page going.
Well, we also have to have better content.
Yeah, maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. Maybe it's
no,
me.
it's not you.
Whatever. Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Take it easy.